This of course brings us to Ninjabread Man. Many claim this is one of the worst.
Yeah, it's time for another remake. Ninjabread Man. I really never thought I'd be talking about this game again. Actually, yeah, I have, but my older reviews were much worse than this, so I wanted to start on those. I first heard about this game by a YouTuber who goes by the name of Wii Viewer. This guy was the very first person I ever subscribed to on YouTube, and he's one of many people who inspired me to do video game reviews in the first place. Definitely check him out when you get the chance. Anyway, during my teen years, I was watching his videos and I came across his Ninjabread Man review. He deemed it as one of the worst video games he's ever played on the Nintendo Wii, and I would agree with him on that if I haven't already played Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. That game is so bad that you can beat it in 9 minutes without even touching the fucking controller. However, the makers of Ninjabread Man, Data Design Interactive, have a reputation of being one of the worst video game developers of all time. I do own some of their games, and I do plan on covering them all so I can hopefully get rid of them. I can't make any promises though, but I'll definitely try. Damn it, GameStop! So, without further ado, let's take a look at Ninjabread Man for the Wii. First of all, I do like the game's cover art. It does actually look kinda cool. At the same time though, it kinda looks like a Cartoon Network show that's been cancelled after 1 or 2 seasons. Yeah, nice low-res image of Ninjabread Man. Look, you can see the white pixels surrounding the game's logo. Well, here's the title screen, and there's no music whatsoever. I don't know why, but it only starts up after you press start and select a profile, which is just strange. The first time I played this game, I thought something went wrong with my TV, so I turned up the volume. But I still didn't hear any sound, so I just assumed that the game had super low audio. Then as soon as I selected a profile, the game's music nearly blew my eardrums out. Before starting the game, I noticed that there's only 4 levels, including basic training. That's pretty bad, dude. Even movie-based games had more levels than that. Well, except Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Hell, even Ju-On the Grudge had 5 levels. I mean, it's not much, but still. The first time I booted up the game, it just locked me in the pause menu for some reason. It wouldn't let me hit continue. It wouldn't let me restart the level. Hell, wouldn't even let me go back to the main menu. So I had to restart my Wii and boot up the game all over again. But even then, it still didn't work. You wanna know what the problem was? My Wiimote had a low battery. I'm not joking. If your Wiimote is about to die, as in it's not dead yet, but it's about to die, it won't let you play the game. All of my other games on the Wii don't do this. If you play any other game and your Wiimote has a low battery, big deal, you can still play the game until it fully dies. But not in Ninjabread Man. You have to change the batteries if you want to continue playing the game. So of course, coming into this game a second time, I made sure that I had some fresh batteries in my Wiimote. Anyway, as soon as you select level 1, you're immediately dropped into the game without any opening cutscenes to set you up for the tutorial. No, you just spawn into the game out of nowhere. Gee, that sounds familiar. At least in Shrek Extra Large they give you a storybook opening. I mean, yeah, it was stupid, but at the very least it gave you a plot. Ninjabread Man has absolutely no plot whatsoever. None. Oh wait, there is a summary of the game's story on the back of the box. Candyland is under attack. Hordes of snapping cupcakes, angry bees, and jelly monsters have taken over this one sweet and tasty land. Only one man can stop this evil army of monster cakes. He's one tough cookie, a man that won't crumble under pressure. Ninjabread Man is here. So basically they just pulled a story out of their ass just so they can have an excuse for this game to exist. Okay, fine, but you could have at least put some cutscenes in this game to tell the story. At the very least, it would give us some motivation to play through the game. Anyway, the first level opens up, and right off the bat, the game is telling me how to walk. Wait, hold the phone. You mean to tell me that if we want to make the cookie walk around, we have to use the analog stick on the nunchuck? Hot damn! I never thought of such a thing. I mean, it's not like we've been doing this since the Nintendo 64. Oh wait, we have! Teaching me how to walk. Give me a break, dude. Well, slow down there, Speedy Gonzalez. This cookie runs almost as fast as Shrek, who almost runs just as fast as Sonic the Hedgehog. Run, run, run as fast as you can. You can't catch me, I'm the Ninjabread Man. Ugh, is this old guy supposed to be a stale cookie? Certainly looks like it. Speaking of looks, this is the most disgusting looking Candyland I've ever seen. For starters, the textures are very muddy and unpolished. It kind of makes me think maybe I shouldn't be eating anything in this world, unless I want to spend 2 hours in the bathroom. Either that or get sent to the hospital. The draw distance isn't very good either. There are times when you can see the environment fading in and out of existence, although it's not to the point where you can't see where you're going. Believe me, I've played games with much worse draw distance. Even the enemies look like crap. I've seen better looking enemies on the Nintendo 64. Just for example, Super Mario 64 has these giant turtles and walking mushroom tips. Banjo-Kazooie has these ugly bridge trolls, angry bulls, and giant gorillas. Damn, I haven't played that game in a long ass time. Ninjabread Man's enemies are incredibly generic looking. It's like they took some desserts, slapped some eyes and feet on them, and called it a day. But at least I can tell what some of them are. See, like that's a cupcake, that's a regular cake, or is that a cheesecake? I can't tell. Wait, is that supposed to be Jello with whipped cream, or is that a walking zit? Why the f are there bees in this game? Yeah, we're making this game called Ninjabread Man, but we need some enemies for the game. What do you got? Well, I think of ice cream, cakes, cupcakes, milk, cookies, chocolate bars, donuts, killer bees from Satan, you know, the usual stuff. I think bees might be attracted to sweets. Perhaps that's the reason why they're in the game. Let me do some research on this. Well, according to Google, yes, bees are attracted to candy, particularly those containing sugars like fructose, and glucose. Huh. Touche, DDI. Touche. Alright, well back to my original point. The game looks bad. Does anybody remember the Simpsons game? In the very first level, Homer falls asleep on his couch and dreams about being in a candy land. This is what Ninjabread Man should have looked like, except minus the bouncing bunnies and the people with yellow skin, of course. But just look how creative this is. There's a river of chocolate, there's gingerbread houses, some chocolate fountains, there's even a giant cake you can climb up and explore. Ninjabread Man has nothing like that. All the levels look like lazily put together slop. Also, the game doesn't display widescreen for some reason. It only runs at 4:3. You guys seriously couldn't put in widescreen support while porting this game? That's right, I said it's a port. It was originally a PS2 game in Europe released in 2005. They ported a US version of it on the Wii in 2007. Hell, a lot of DDI's games were ported to America, and yet they still couldn't get widescreen support on these games. Well, you know the saying, if you don't care about the little things, then you sure as hell don't care about the big things. Which brings us to the controls. After the game shows you how to walk, it then tells you to jump by shaking the nunchuck. These are by far the dumbest jumping controls I've ever seen in my entire life. First of all, the motion controls to jump are finicky as hell, so you'll be missing your jumps quite a bit. Second, even if the motion controls worked perfectly, it's still awkward to jump like that and it could tire you out very quickly. At first I didn't have a problem with it because I managed to jump across the first row of platforms with no issues, so I figured maybe the jumping mechanics aren't too bad. But that wasn't until I got to level 2 where I had to jump over these cookie sticks. The camera was bad too. You control it by pointing the cursor left and right on the screen. I really hate controlling the camera this way, and it makes me wish that the Wiimote had a C-stick so I can use that instead. You can also put the camera back behind your character by pushing down on the D-pad, which was actually really helpful. Getting back to the jumping controls, I found out you don't have to use the nunchuck waggle to jump anymore. No, instead you can just use the Z button, which was a much welcome change. Here's the screwed up part though. The game never bothers to tell you this. Not even the instruction manual tells you that you can jump with the Z button. Is this a joke? But man, if you thought the jumping was bad, the combat is even worse. Since Ninjabread Man has a sword, and since you're playing this on the Wii, you're probably thinking, oh great, waggle controls. Well, I wouldn't blame you for thinking that. And unfortunately, you're correct. The sword swinging mechanics barely work, and they're even more finicky than the jumping mechanics. Most of the time when I shake the Wiimote, this dumbass ninja just stands there doing nothing while he's getting his ass beat by a bunch of cupcakes. Luckily, there is a way to attack enemies without using the sword. You can throw ninja stars at the enemies, and surprisingly, it works just fine. But then again, how can you screw up pointing with the Wiimote? Oh, that's right, when you map it with the camera, never mind. The more you throw ninja stars at the enemies, the more that this meter will fill up, and if it fills up all the way, you can kill the enemies with only one hit. When you kill enemies, they will drop hearts, and if you collect enough of them, you will get an extra life. But you have to collect the hearts immediately after killing the enemies, otherwise the hearts will float away. No, I am not kidding. There were times where I couldn't get the hearts just because I didn't collect them in time. You seriously couldn't just let them stay on the ground like every other game? Also, when you start a new level, the game gets rid of all your extra lives. Are you f***ing kidding me? I worked hard for those lives. I want to keep them, damn it. The music in this game is okay at best and a little annoying at worst. I do like the track that plays in level 1 and level 2, but the rest of the tracks are pretty boring. And yes, level 1 and level 2 share the exact same track. They couldn't even bother making a separate track for level 2? That's just lazy. Also, the music doesn't seem to fit with the game's theme. It just sounds like really generic upbeat music. Level 1 is basically the tutorial level. You go through doors and collect high school diplomas to unlock all the other doors. In order to collect them, you have to do stuff like jump across platforms, kill enemies with your sword, and throw ninja stars at targets. Once you do that, you move on to level 2. Now when I first played this game, I had no idea what the hell I was supposed to do. You're in this cramped and crowded maze surrounded by a bunch of enemies that can kill you if you're not careful. I started roaming around the level trying to figure out what my objective is, until I came across this planet looking thing. What exactly is this thing and what does it do? Okay, it's an arrow now. Why is it pointing down? Do I stand underneath it? No. Do I jump down from the lollipop? No. What the f***? Whatever, screw this. After a while, I noticed that there was another arrow on the bottom right of the screen, and it pointed me to this blue cylinder thing. I collected it and it played a cutscene of some gears turning on a machine. It turns out the machine is a teleporter and you have to collect the blue cylinders to power it up and move on to the next level. Alright, so let's get the rest. Now shit, I died. Wait, why am I back at the arrow? Oh my god. It's a checkpoint. That looks nothing like a checkpoint, dude. Why couldn't you just put a little flag that says checkpoint on it? Why is there an arrow pointing at the ground? Why did you have to make this so incredibly complicated? This is the dumbest and most confusing looking checkpoint I've ever seen in a video game. Okay, so I collected all the blue cylinders, walked into the teleporter, and now I'm in level 3. So what exactly do you do in level 3? The exact same thing I just did in level 2. You go around collecting blue cylinders to power up the teleporter in all 3 levels minus the tutorial. That's the whole objective. Go through teleporters. I thought the point of this game was to save Candyland from being attacked by jelly monsters and shit. I mean, you would think the game would tell you to kill all the enemies in each level to progress through the area. You know, kinda like the tutorial level. But no, you just gotta power up teleporters. It doesn't even matter if you leave some of the enemies alive. You just move on to the next level and eventually beat the game. So really, you just let Candyland get overrun by evil cupcakes and killer bees. The game's box is a lie. Ninjabread Man's not a hero. He's a fucking sociopath. Jesus Christ. So yeah, level 3 is the exact same thing. But to be fair, this level is better than the second one because it's much more open and less crowded, thank God. It's also more linear and it has some obstacles to get by in order to get the blue cylinders, so that's kinda neat. What's that thing right there? What? This game has landmines now? Well, that sucks. These things have a pretty big blast radius too. Oh, you gotta be kidding me. They put a landmine on a floating platform? I can already see where this is going. Yep, f*** off, dude. Oh god, there's another one? Come on, man, give me a break. Wait, can I throw ninja stars at them to set them off? No, of course not. Why would I ever think I can do such a thing? Well, it hit me, but at least it didn't blow me off the platform. Okay, here's a neat little platforming challenge. You have to memorize a pattern of blocks on the bottom, then walk along the squares on top or you'll fall into this boiling hot jelly. I thought that was interesting. Once you collect those, you move on to level 4. This level takes place in a giant candy cave, but in order to get inside, you have to jump across these spaced out ledges. You need to time your jumps just right, or else you'll keep falling into this boiling hot jelly, jam, reddish purple lava, whatever the hell this stuff actually is. Once you're inside the cave, you'll be jumping across oddly shaped cookies and floating crackers to collect the rest of the blue cylinders. After all that, the game is over. Wait, that's it? There's no ending to this game? Not even a word of congratulations? This game didn't even last that long either. It only took me like 40 minutes to beat the entire game. 40 minutes! And you know what the crazy thing about this is? We're not even done with the game! There's 3 game modes you unlock after beating the game. These modes are score pickups, hidden pickups, and time attack. The game didn't even tell me that I unlocked these modes either. I found out about them by mistake. You know how in Super Smash Bros. They tell you that you unlock something after completing a challenge? Not Ninjabread Man. Hell, they didn't even take me to the credits when I beat the game. They just sent me back to the main menu, leaving me confused and pissed off. I'll be honest with you, after beating this game, I really did not want to play these extra game modes. I was ready to turn this game off and never touch it again. But I figured I should at least talk about them a little bit. So let's start with score pickups. In this mode, you gotta collect a certain amount of candy that's scattered around the level. There's 3 difficulty modes: easy, medium, and hard. On easy, you pick up 346 pieces, medium is 519, and hard is 658. Oh hell no, I'm sticking with easy mode. When I tested this mode out, I had this idea that maybe the developers of this game were so lazy that you can beat this mode without collecting the candy. So I went out of my way to avoid collecting the candy, I got all the blue cylinders, I went to the teleporter, and surprisingly it didn't work. Alright, well at least this game didn't pull a Rudolph on me. So eventually I collected all the required pieces of candy, headed back to the teleporter, and finished the level. God, that was tedious. The next mode is hidden pickups, where you have to find 20 pieces of candy that's been hidden all over the levels. Oh hell no, I ain't doing this. The last mode is called Time Attack, where you have to complete the levels under a 250-second time limit. In other words, 4 minutes and 10 seconds. I attempted to do this in the first level, but I died with only 2 minutes to spare. I could have tried a second time, but by then I just couldn't take it anymore. If I didn't stop playing this game, I was going to develop a headache. I already got one playing Shrek Extra Large, and I didn't need another one. It should go without saying, but Ninjabread Man is just really bad. It's considered one of the worst Wii games of all time for a reason. The gameplay, graphics, controls, camera, combat, and level design are all so terrible. I mean seriously, did they even test this game before they shipped it? Hard-working team? You guys had this many people in the quality assurance team? Oh my god, dude. So yeah, this game is terrible. But as terrible as this game is, it's not nearly as bad as Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. At least Ninjabread Man is an actual game. Therefore, it's not the worst game on the Nintendo Wii. But what about the PS2? Actually, I'm not quite sure if it's the worst game on the PS2, but I am curious to see if the PS2 version of Ninjabread Man is any better than the Wii version. I'd probably say yes, since the PS2 doesn't have motion controls. I would buy a physical copy of this game, but unfortunately I can't do that, because like I mentioned before, this version was only released in Europe. So how exactly am I supposed to play this game? Honestly, how do you think I'm going to play it? Well, here's the title screen, and believe it or not, there's actually music this time! Not only that, but I think the menu music is actually better on the PS2 version. So once you're at the title screen, the game gives you 2 options, play game or how to play. I chose how to play thinking it was going to send me to the tutorial level, but no, it's basically an in-game manual. I don't know why this option is in the title screen though. In every other game, you get out of the title screen, go to the options menu, and then access the in-game manual. Hell, you can even do it in this game, so why is it in the title screen? That's a little odd. Wait, there's only 3 levels in this one? Where's the training level? You mean to tell me basic training is exclusive to the Wii version? Talk about missing content. You know what else is strange? The 3 levels are the exact same as the Wii version, but they're played in reverse order. On the Wii you play the Lollipop Forest first, Candy Cliffs second, and Cookie Caves third. But on the PS2 it's Candy Caves first, Candy Cliffs second, and Lollipop Forest third. That is so off-putting and weird. So I start the level, and once again I'm dropped into the game with no cutscenes or dialogue. However, I did notice something about the PS2 version. The game actually looks slightly better than the Wii version. They added a little bit of distance fog, and the game actually runs at 60 frames per second. The controls are better too. The fighting mechanics are still shit, but pressing a button to swing your sword is more responsive than the motion controls. Throwing ninja stars without having to point at the screen feels better as well. Although sometimes my character won't hit the target for some dumbass reason. Not having to point at the screen to rotate the camera is also great. But the problem is the camera turns ridiculously slow. Thankfully you can still push a button to put the camera directly behind your character, so that's good. The draw distance is still the same as the Wii version, where the background will fade in and out of existence, but it's not so bad to the point where it's game breaking. Levels 1 and 3 share the same music, but level 2 has a completely different track that wasn't in the Wii version. And finally, the game actually congratulates you after beating the game, unlike the Wii version. Overall, the game is still dog shit, but in terms of which version is better, the PS2 version wins hands down. Call me crazy, but I was actually enjoying myself playing this game. However, that was only because the Wii version was so bad that any change felt like a huge upgrade. Oh, and by the way, because the PS2 version is missing the tutorial, and because I'm very familiar with the game at this point, the game only took me 30 minutes to beat. Big shock, I know. Final verdict, this game is terrible. Unless you want to buy a gift for an unthankful relative for Christmas or something, do not buy this game. I would tell you not to rent this game either, but let's be serious. Nobody can rent games anymore in this day and age. There's another one? Mother of God.